Bonjour, bienvenue à notre conférence de presse de midi. Nous sommes jeudi le 17 août 2023. Ravi de vous revoir à tous ceux qui sont ici en salle presse. Nous n'avons pas d'annonce à partager avec vous en particulier, donc we can straight go into your questions. Who wants to start? Yes, please.
No. Yeah. Jakob Meyer from German Public Radio ARD. I have a question on the construction of the Commission after the leaving of Mr. Timmermans and Mrs. Vestager. Did you already get a proposal from the Dutch government who's going to replace Mr. Timmermans? And when will we get to know who is going to take responsibility of the Green Deal inside the Commission? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question. I have no information to share on this topic today for you.
And concerning the time frame, do you know when you will have some information to share with us?
Yeah, no, I'm afraid not. I can't indicate a time frame either.
So you didn't get a proposal from the Dutch government as by now?
I have no information to share on the topic. Yes, please. Maria. Oops.
Oui, bonjour, merci beaucoup Maria Audrescu. Maria, non? Je peux continuer? Oui, pardon. Maria Audrescu pour la Libre Belgique. Quelques questions liées aux affaires étrangères. Une première fois concernant le Niger, je ne sais pas s'il est possible de refaire le point sur la mission EU-Cap Sahel-Niger à la lumière du contexte actuel. Combien de personnes se trouvent sur place dans le cadre de cette mission et où? Je sais que les activités de la mission ont été suspendues, mais jusqu'à quand? Et quand est-ce qu'on discuterait éventuellement d'un arrêt et d'un rapatriement? Y a-t-il déjà en ce moment des discussions concernant des éventuelles sanctions contre les responsables du coup d'État? Et j'aurais ensuite une question concernant l'Arménie et l'Azerbaïdjan. Je ne sais pas si je la pose maintenant ou si j'attends la réponse à la première partie.
J'invite alors Peter qui nous joint virtuellement, de me joindre virtuellement alors et reprendre tes questions.
Bonjour, je vais adresser toutes les questions de Maria. Donc, premièrement, sur Niger, il n'y a pas de nouvelles à partager. Maintenant, nous avons dit déjà au début des coups que nous avons suspendu notre coopération sécuritaire et aussi le financement budgétaire avec Niger parce que nous ne reconnaissons pas les autorités qui sont en pouvoir maintenant. Notre mission, il y a toujours des membres de mission sur place, mais à cause de sécurité, nous ne partageons pas les nombres exacts. Et sur les sanctions, nous avons dit déjà plusieurs fois que nous sommes prêts à soutenir toutes les décisions et les actions de CEDEAO, ECOWAS, dans ce domaine, et ça inclut aussi les décisions sur les sanctions individuelles. Nous avons répété cette position le samedi dernier dans la déclaration par aux représentants au nom de tous les pays membres de l'Union européenne. Donc nous sommes prêts à travailler dans cette direction et nous répétons nos pleins soutiens à les activités et les décisions de CEDEAO.
Merci Peter. Suivi. Je vois ta main levée.
Oui. Et juste concernant l'Arménie et l'Azerbaïdjan, je sais qu'il y a déjà eu des déclarations sur cette crise du haut représentant, mais voilà, quelle est votre toute dernière évaluation de la situation sur le terrain et quelles actions est-ce que l'Union européenne entreprend pour essayer de résoudre la situation ou d'apaiser, disons, la crise humanitaire en cours dans le Haut-Karabakh. Merci.
Merci Maria. Nous avons, comme j'ai déjà dit au Niger, nous avons fait notre position très publique et très connue dans les dernières jours et semaines. Il n'y a pas rien de nouveau à ajouter à ça. La dernière déclaration des représentants de notre parti est toujours valide. Donc nous appelons les deux parties, Azerbaïdjan et Arménie, de continuer à s'engager pour trouver les solutions dans tous les aspects qu'on a sur la table, dans l'agenda entre les deux pays, pour trouver les solutions, soit la question des corridors de l'achat, soit des questions de la normalisation. Nous sommes bien sûr engagés. Il y a des efforts de médiation des présidents des conseils, M. Michel. Ça continue. Nous avons notre envoyé spécial pour la région qui est en fait maintenant dans la région pour continuer les efforts de l'Union européenne. Donc nous sommes là pour nos partenaires, pour les aider de trouver les solutions et avancer dans le processus de normalisation.
Merci, Peter. I would suggest that we stay with foreign affairs. But before we do that, let me get back to your question from before. One thing that is evident for us, but it's maybe worth recalling, that Executive Vice President Timmermans has not resigned or has taken any leave, neither has Executive Vice President Margrethe Vestager. So they are full members of the college, and all the questions that you ask are speculative at this moment. I would like to underline that. I mean, it's evident, but I think it's useful to recall this. Okay. So back to foreign affairs. Yes, Moser?
Yes, thank you, Johannes. I think this is also related to foreign affairs. In a way, I think the issue is covered by Peter, because he has answered that question before. It's about Quran burnings, in especially Sweden, recently. And as you know, we asked a lot of questions of whether there is any EU legislation which could, let's say, be applied against Quran burnings as a form of hate speech, and that would be, in that case, you have to know, so-called framework decision. And then we know that the Commission launched infringement procedure against Sweden already in 2021, and then Sweden, let's say, started to inquire into this issue, and their report was in fact published in spring, a few months ago, and it deals with some proposed amendments in the Swedish Criminal Code and also in the Media Freedom Act, which is let's say, a constitutional law, but it doesn't at all cover the issue about Quran burnings. And the thing is now, perhaps you know that already, that the first amendments in the Criminal Code will enter into force on the 1st of, let's say, no, I think next year, in the 1st of July 24, while the other changes only after new elections. So that means it will enter in force in 27. My question is now whether the Commission will start assessing those amendments already now before they enter into force, because otherwise I suppose Quran burnings will continue in Sweden and also, let's say, cause a lot of problems for the rest of the EU and its relations with the Islamic world. And if so, if you will make an assessment of the new legislation, and whether it is in line with or not with this framework decision, is it likely also that Sweden, when I say the Commission will... No, the question is, the second question is, I come to that now, sorry, I just want to give the background.
Sorry, may I just say, this is a question for Christian.
Okay, but the paper is covering for him,
I took note of your question. We will come back to the issue that you raised once we have finished with Foreign Affairs. And then you can also ask a follow-up question once Christian has given you our position. Let's first check whether someone else has a question on Foreign Affairs, as I had asked before. That's not the case. Maybe online. I see a question by Fatlum Yashari. I suppose it's on Foreign Affairs. You have the floor.
Yes, thank you. It's in Foreign Affairs. It's regarding Kosovo-Serbia dialogue. I have two questions for Peter. Is the announcement of new elections in 4 North municipalities in Kosovo the moment when the European Union will start a removal of measures against Kosovo? And the second one is, will EU insist on concrete results before the end of the year from the Brussels Agreement and the Ohrid Annex? Because we know next year we have European elections. Thank you.
Thank you. Indeed, Foreign Affairs for Peter.
Fatlum, and welcome to our midday press briefing. Thank you for the questions. The European Union was, I think, very clear on many occasions about what we expect. The European Union, its member states, and also the international partners made specific requests for the escalation to both parties. The EU requests were formulated in the statement by High Representative on the 3rd of June. And in this statement, which was agreed by all 27 member states, the European Union stated very clearly that we are ready to take resolute measures in case of failure to de-escalate. The EU requested Kosovo to act in a non-escalatory way and immediately suspend police operations inside and in the vicinity of the 4 municipal buildings in the North Kosovo. The 4 mayors should temporarily perform their duties in premises other than the municipal buildings. We also noted and we welcome the recent announcement by the Kosovo government of a further reduction of police presence by 25% in and around the municipal buildings in the northern Kosovo. These are all very important steps in the right direction, but further steps are needed. And again, like with everything in the dialogue, the timelines are actually not really in our hands. The timelines depend on the ability of the parties to deliver on the necessary requests or criteria or commitments. And in order to solve the current crisis, we said also many times, early elections should be announced as soon as possible in all 4 municipalities, organized in a full and inclusive manner. This means also the full and unconditional participation of Kosovo Serbs. And then it is also very important to return to the proper dialogue between Kosovo and Serbia, between Pristina and Belgrade, so that we can go back to the normal dialogue and tackle the issues one by one. And the most important issues are the Ohrid Agreement and the implementation annex to it.
Thank you very much indeed, Peter, for this comprehensive reply. And nevertheless, see a follow-up. Yashari.
Yes, thank you for the answer. I would like to know if the European Union sees any urgency on concrete results, because we have seen a lot of agreements, but no results on implementation of agreements. So do you see any urgency on implementation before the end of the year because of the elections next year and other developments? Thank you.
Thanks, Fatlum. Indeed, I mean, the urgency should be seen on the ground. The urgency should be seen by the people and by their political leaders, because whatever is done in the framework of the dialogue is not in order to please Brussels or the member states and their capitals or the international partners. It's in order to improve the life of people in both in Kosovo and Serbia, and this is all linked to how the countries are advancing on the European path. So, of course, there is a sense of urgency. There was a sense of urgency already before the latest escalation happened. And we conveyed this sense of urgency to partners, both at the institutional level from Brussels, at the level of all 27 member states, at the level of other international partners, mainly the United States. There is a sense of urgency to complete the necessary steps to de-escalate and return back to the dialogue, not because of the election cycle in Brussels or in the EU, but because of the benefits, or for the benefit of people both in Kosovo and Serbia, so that both sides can start working properly on the normalization and therefore also moving forward on the European agenda, because no progress on dialogue, no progress on the EU path. This was stressed by the EU very clearly on several occasions as well.
Thank you. If there are no other questions for Peter, as it seems to be the case, then I would suggest that we get back to you, Mose. So I see a question by Lawrence. Is this Foreign Affairs? Sorry, it's just the hand that just got up.
No, sorry, not Foreign Affairs.
Okay, good. So, okay. Yeah, all fine. Good. Then I would say we could give apologies back to you, Mose. Maybe you summarize your question very briefly, and then Peter Christian can reply.
Yes. I know that this is still a kind of draft legislation, but on the other hand, Sweden has been very slow in, let's say, transposing this framework directive, which was, decided back in 2008, and then it's supposed to be transposed by 2010. Okay, so my question is whether the Commission can already now assess, these amendments. And if so, also, let's inform Sweden about its opinion, whether what it has done until now will be sufficient for a full transposition of the framework directive when it comes in regard to the Quran burnings or burnings of other books which are considered holy by religious communities? Thanks.
Thank you. Christian.
Yes. Thank you, Moses, for your question. Let me first maybe take a step back and remind you of our general position that is very clear. When it comes to the Quran burnings or the burning of holy books, the Commission has always been clear that manifestations of racism, xenophobia, and related intolerance have no place in Europe. As we have said before, such actions are not compatible with the values on which the EU is founded. As regards your question of putting this into relation with the framework decision against racism and xenophobia, let me say two things. First, as you know, it is for national authorities to investigate concrete cases, so it's also not for us to comment on the application of the framework decision in such a concrete case. And second, indeed, there is an ongoing infringement case against Sweden on issues related to the transposition of the framework decision. This case had been launched in February 2021. This infringement case is, however, unrelated to failure to criminalize incitement to violence and hatred on grounds of religion. So in short, it is not related to the issue of desecration of books considered to be holy. We are, of course, aware of the ongoing legislative process in Sweden to, also in response to the infringement case, to change the respective laws, and we, of course, follow this closely. But this is an ongoing infringement case, and as you know, we cannot comment in any detail on ongoing infringements. Thanks.
Thank you, Christian. I trust this reply to your question, yeah? Follow up then?
If I understood Christian correctly, I think you said that the framework decision is not so much related to religion. Or, of course, it's not related directly with the burning of the Quran and other holy books, but I think that the decision says something about discrimination grounds of, for example, gender and nationality and religion and so on. And hate speech in general. I mean, it's intended to combat hate speech, and the burning of a holy book like this can be considered, I suppose, as an act of hate speech and not a matter of freedom of expression, as Sweden continues to claim. So I would think that it's very much related to this issue. And now, because of the long, let's say, delay in transporting the decision, and also it's entering into force, will take some years completely. Well, the question remains why the Commission cannot express its opinions, if it has anyone, on this issue. Thank you.
I believe Christian has said what he can say on the topic. Christian, if you have anything to add.
Well, Moses, just to clarify, of course, the framework decision as such also is related to incitement to hatred on the grounds of religion. What I was saying is not that the framework decision is not related to it, but that this specific infringement is not related to it. So you can also check in our press material that we published back then. But in a nutshell, the infringement against Sweden is about incorrect transposition, regarding inciting to violence, failing to criminalize hate speech when addressed to individual members of a group, for instance, defined by the criteria in the decision, or about criminalizing specific forms of hate speech. But I would point you there to the press release or the daily news that we had published back then in 2021 when we launched this infringement, where we, as always, explain the infringement cases. What I'm saying is it is not related to the desecration of holy books. And otherwise, I think our position is very clear. We have made very clear and I've reminded you of this in the beginning, what our position on this issue is, but that in the concrete case, it is always for the national authorities to look into the matter, to look into possible, follow-up actions if needed by the authorities, and I think there have been actions by the authorities in this case as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian, for this clarification. So let's move to other issues. Any questions in the room before we go to the platform online? Yes, please. I saw your question.
Good afternoon. My name is Koen Verhelst. I work for MLEX. I have a question on trade, on Indonesia particularly. I saw that Indonesia filed a dispute settlement request at the WTO against the EU on biodiesel. And I was wondering, how does that relate to the ongoing FTA negotiations? Because this is now the third WTO case at the same time. Secondly, the Indonesian president yesterday said, or I think today actually said, that they're going to continue downstreaming this policy of like the things that they're doing also to nickel, for instance, to add more bans, export bans to it, which is something that the Commission is, of course, against. How does that influence the FTA negotiations? And finally, is there any prognosis on when the next round might be taking place? Thanks a lot.
Yes, thank you very much, Anita. Sorry. Balázs is, Miriam is not here today, apologies, and Balázs is replacing Miriam.
My name has been misspelled a lot in my life, but I've never been called Anita before. But it's a first. So I'm actually trying to step into the shoes of Miriam today, who left me with a little message on this issue. So let me just say that indeed on the 11th of August this year, Indonesia filed a request at the World Trade Organization for consultations with the EU concerning the EU's countervailing duties imposed on biodiesel from Indonesia. Now, the EU will accept this request for consultations and stands ready to discuss with Indonesia a mutually convenient date and modalities for holding these consultations. The EU is, of course, confident that its countervailing duties are in full compliance with the WTO rules. In its WTO request for consultations, Indonesia is challenging both the definitive and provisional countervailing duties on imports of biodiesel from Indonesia, imposed respectively by the Commission implementing regulation back in 2019 on the 28th of November, and another regulation which was adopted on the 12th August in the same year. So the definitive countervailing duties range between 8 and 18%, and they were at the same level as the provisional duties. So the duties are due to expire in December next year, unless the Commission initiates an expiry review investigation. So that would be my answer to this question.
Could you add anything in relation to the FTA negotiations which are going on in parallel?
I don't have any particular information as to the impact of this decision by Indonesia on the ongoing FTA negotiations, but I will make sure to check with my colleagues, but I don't have any immediate comments on the potential links.
Thank you. Before we go to other questions, is there anything in particular for Balázs that you may have on your minds? I see that Lawrence has his hand up. So, Lawrence.
Yeah, thanks. I actually had a couple for Balázs and then one on energy. Balázs, are you able to give us any update on where things stand on the temporary Ukraine grain exports arrangement, which expires next month? Where does this stand? Is it officially the case that the Commission intends to end that arrangement on September the 15th, or is that still up in the air? And as I mentioned to you privately, I'd love to have an update on the gallium and germanium investigation that the Commission was doing, but I understand you may not have, and it's not usually your niche. But if you have anything on that, do let me know. Thanks.
Yep. thank you. So indeed on the second question, I might have to inquire as well with our experts, but I can catch you up with the latest on the first one. So as you know probably very well, we are working very intensively with the member states and Ukraine, but also with Moldova to tackle logistical problems and a significant increase in the capacity, as regards the capacity of the solidarity lanes. And of course the work is done among others through what we call the Joint Coordination Platform, which was established back in May in an agreement between the President of the Commission and the President of Ukraine, and the work is essentially carried out under the leadership of Executive Vice President Dombrovskis. Now, the platform has gathered a couple of times, and the objective is to work towards some initial results, and there have been some good initial results already, from deepening trust and information exchange to setting up and implementing concrete actions to remove logistic bottlenecks and increase capacity as well, especially via the Danube route, but also via the Baltic and Adriatic corridors. So we are confident that these actions agreed in the context of the platform will improve the efficiency of the solidarity lanes, despite the additional challenge triggered by the termination of the Black Sea grain initiative, and we remain fully committed, of course, to keep the EU's unwavering support to Ukraine. Now, any call for a prolongation of the preventive measures beyond 15 September is, in our point of view, premature at the moment. We believe that we have to give time to the platform to deliver. And let me just add that today the sixth meeting took place under the platform, and we are working on a readout which we will be able to share with you very soon.
Thank you very much, Balázs. Further questions on this or on Balázs's normal brief? Echo, Budge, HR? That does not seem to be the case. Thank you very much, Balázs. You had a question over there, right? Lawrence has a follow-up. Okay, but we come back to it later.
Okay, thank you, Andrzej Werwiński, Polsat News. I have a question about Milestone's recovery and resilience facility and retirement age. Does the adoption of tax relief regulations that encourage people to work longer after reaching the retirement age fulfill this milestone? Does the Poland meet this condition?
Thank you for your question. I understand this is a question on the RRP, correct? That's what you said. This would normally be for Verle, who is not here, but Dan is replacing her. And he is with us.
Yep. Thanks very much, Johannes, and hi, Andrzej. Thanks for the question. So the Polish Recovery and Resilience Plan indeed includes a tax incentive for those workers who have reached retirement age but want to continue working. The objective of this measure is to improve the functioning of the labour market and the sustainability of the pension system in Poland. Now, as usual, we will assess the fulfilment of this milestone once Poland sends its second payment request. We cannot comment on this any further at this stage. Thank you.
Dan, thank you very much. Your camera does not seem to work. Maybe you can check that. There's a follow-up question, so maybe try to switch it on while we take the follow-up. Yeah.
Okay, I would like to clarify, does the milestone oblige the Poland to raise the retirement age, or is this more about encouraging people to work longer?
Thanks very much, and apologies if my camera is not working. It was working a minute ago, but I will make sure that it gets sorted out. No, as I said, the objective of this measure is to improve the functioning of the labour market and the sustainability of the pension system in Poland. And as I said, we will assess this measure once Poland sends its second payment request, and I cannot comment further at this stage.
Thank you, and indeed your camera does not seem to work. I see a question about Tomasz. Is this also on Poland? We can see you but not hear you. You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I have also the question on Poland, but on other issue, but also related to the referendum, whose referendum as also retirement age. It is on migration. So Poland is to hold this referendum in mid-October, asking voters, and I quote, if they support the admission of illegal immigrants from the Middle East and Africa according to the forced relocation mechanism imposed by the European bureaucracy. And since the European bureaucracy in the Polish authorities' propaganda language means European Commission, I'm wondering if you have any comment on it, or if you are going to join the debate on this issue, this pre-referendum campaign. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas. The line is not very clear, so it's a bit difficult to understand you. But I understand the question is on the Polish referendum and especially on the migration part of that referendum. I can just in general say that we do not comment on referenda, which are a national competence. But apart from that, more generally on migration, Anita has joined me on the podium.
Mm-hmm. Precisely. Thank you for the question. And as Johannes has said, we will not comment neither on the referenda. This is for the member states, nor on the questions that have been put forward. On the other side, we can, of course, walk you through our approach when it comes to migration, the need to have it managed in a coordinated way. This also relates in particular to the instrumentalization attempts that we have seen, where Poland has been also confronted with. We have seen the irregular migration challenge. They're not just a challenge for the member states in the south, but also with the Lukashenko's attempts also for Poland. I would also like to reiterate our two-track approach with the pact and the need to have immediate operational measures in place. And of course, on the point of the solidarity issue, this should not be confused with mandatory relocation. Here, the member states also have been cleared at the GHA that took place in June, where a general approach on the framework of the asylum migration management regulation has been agreed on. And also, I would like to point you out to the tweets of Commissioner Johannes on this matter.
Many thanks, Anita. I hope this replied to the question. Yeah, I don't see any follow-up. Any other questions for Anita while she's here? Not in the room? Online, maybe? Desislava, is your question for Anita? If that's the case, then please go ahead.
Desislava Mincheva, Bulgarian television, BTV. The European Commission has stated many times that supports Bulgaria and Romania for Schengen. And my question is, did this position change yesterday after the landmark murder of Alexei Petrov, a key figure for national security and political system in Bulgaria? And does the Commission think that this murder can stop Bulgaria for Schengen again if there is a vote before the end of the year? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Desislava. As you know, the Commission cannot comment on individual cases, and it is for the national authorities to follow up and conduct investigations. And this should not be mixed with the Schengen process, which has its own track, clear rules, and where the position of the Commission is very clear and long-standing. Both Bulgaria and Romania are ready to fully join the Schengen area. I would also like to reiterate that Bulgaria and Romania have acted consistently as essential actors for the continuous development of the Schengen area. It has been now since 12 years since the Commission confirmed that both Bulgaria and Romania are ready to become fully part of the Schengen area without internal border controls. You are aware of the voluntary fact-finding missions which took place in October and November last year. And once more, according to the treaties, all member states of the EU need to become, when ready, full members of the Schengen area. This is both a right and an obligation these countries have. and this is why we expect the Council to take this year the decision making these countries fully fledged members of the Schengen area.
Thank you very much, Anita. Further questions for Anita, while she's here? Not in the room, not online. But thank you for having joined me. Lawrence, you have another question.
Yeah, I do. It's on energy for whoever's dealing with that today. Shall I go ahead?
Yes, you can go ahead. Tim is not here, but Stefan is replacing him.
Okay, great. I just noting had to Vertigo on their 90% gas supplies story. I just wondered if maybe Stefan can tell me how it is that this was hit so early, whether there's a push from the EU to continue to build up beyond the 90% that the EU targets, given the circumstances, and also given that Ukraine has a fairly low stockage there, which is probably something of concern for something of concern. Just anything and anything more he can add to how we got such high stocks at this point.
Thank you. Stefan.
Thank you very much. First, I hope that you understand me because my line is not ideal. Listen, I cannot comment on market developments, of course. It is true that we have fixed for the member states the need to fill storages of 90% of the capacity by the 1st of November. And the good news is indeed that as of today, the storage is at 89.89%, which is indeed excellent news. With regard to the situation in let me have a quick look. No, I think I will have to leave it at that. I don't think we are in a position to make comments on the actual market developments. Member states see and understand that it's extremely important to stick to the obligation to refill our gas storage facilities. And this is an ongoing process, and we are very much on track there. And I think I'll have to leave it at that for the moment.
Thank you, Stefan. I see that Lawrence's hand is nevertheless still up. Lawrence, follow up.
Yeah, sorry, I should have added this. Stefan, can you, is it fair to say that this was partly because there were high stocks at the end of last winter? Is that fair to say? And can you say, or if not, get back to me, is there an estimate of what that 90% would cover? If I remember from last winter, that's considered to cover, say, 3 months of winter, but wouldn't cover a longer, harsher winter. Is there any kind of evaluation you can give to that or come back to me on? Thanks.
Stefan?
Thank you very much, Lawrence. I think on these additional questions, I will get back to you.
All clear. Thank you very much, Stefan. Any further questions for us today? Not in the room, it seems. Not online, it seems. Then I thank you for your attendance and have a nice day. And we see each other on Tuesday again. Thank you.